Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and we are brought to you by X Factor Labs. You can use code O'Need over there for all of your peptide needs. We're also sponsored by Next Level Strength Co. Wrist wraps, knee sleeves, t-shirts, anything you need, great quality stuff. Whether you're looking for stuff for training or for competition, they've got you covered. Code O'Need will save for you over there. Also, TC Nutrition, get your batch 27 complete isolate. Use code TCXONEED for the best tasting, highest quality supplements that I have found. And then lastly, we are sponsored by Barefoot Shoes, my favorite, most comfortable barefoot shoes to wear out and about. And for training, use code ONEED to save. Today, I'm joined by somebody who's been hyped up probably more than any other guest I've had by the people who I've told he's coming on the podcast. Mutual friend of Danny Lamartina, who's a very close friend of mine. And I'm very excited for this conversation. Mr. Tommy Stiles, welcome.
Paul, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm stoked. I've been thinking about this one for since I met you out at Muscle Factory here, like not even that long ago.
Yeah. So the backstory there is I get to Muscle Factory. My wife had just competed the day before, and I'm taking a shit at the gym. And as I'm walking into the bathroom, I'm like, I think that's Tommy Stiles, but I really have to take a shit. And it's awkward to introduce yourself to somebody when you have to shit. So I didn't know if it was him. So I messaged him on Instagram and I was like, hey, are you still here? And ended up went and introduced myself at the front desk.
Worked out. I was oblivious. I didn't even see you in there.
That gym is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's a great spot. My good friend Lance Millette is the owner, so I've watched him piece it together square foot by square foot and piece by piece over the last 5 years.
That's awesome. So what brought you out to Arizona? Because, I was reading your bio. You were a firefighter, paramedic in Detroit, and now you're in Arizona. Tell me a little bit about your story. Like we've never had a conversation beyond that initial gym one, so let's get to know you.
Yeah, so born and raised in mid-Michigan, kind of bounced around. I was a firefighter paramedic in the Metro Detroit area for altogether about 5 years.
Okay.
2018, I made a decision to leave the fire service kind of overnight. Just had a bad shift, and I was like, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. So felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And then I got going on, personal training, taking on clients. A couple months later, I was a manager at a gym, a new startup gym. It was like a powerlifting bodybuilding combo. So long story short, I did all that for like a year and a half. Was still kind of lost. And then I don't know what really sparked it, but I was like, I just had this feeling. I had done some traveling earlier in the summer. I went out to a festival in Washington State, and then I went to Vegas for the Olympia. And each time I got back to Michigan, I just was like depressed and sad that I was back in Michigan.
That tracks.
And yeah, one thing led to another, and I just was like, I'm going to move to Arizona. And because it was either between Arizona and Vegas, and Dusty Hanshaw, who I'm sure we'll get into, who's my mentor. He was like, well, where I live is pretty awesome, Scottsdale. And, Vegas is a 4.5 hour drive. So you get the best of both worlds. And I was like, cool, I'm going to move to Arizona. And then I talked to my dad, and I mentioned it. I was like, I'm thinking about moving to Arizona. And he was like, you should. I wish I'd have left the state when I was a young man. And right there, I knew I had to go just because of what he said. Because I was 28 at the time. And I was like, whether I stay there or whether it blows up, whatever, I got to do this because I don't want to live with regret. Yep. So a month later, I was in Arizona.
One of the things that, I can look back on my own journey is anytime I've been scared to take a leap and it came down to a decision to bet on myself, I've never been wrong.
Yeah.
And there's just something in some of us, I won't say all of us, but I will say some of us, that will look at an opportunity and get scared and kind of retreat inward versus the person who steps up. And I'm wondering, has that always been part of your personality, or was this like a complete step outside your comfort zone?
I'd say it's all, for the most part, it was like, I got out of high school, went to university, did terrible. Was like, oh, I need to figure out something to do or I'm going to be a loser. And I was raised not to be a loser. And I
Mhm.
always had that in the back of my mind, like, hey, man, you can't be a loser in life. You got to do something. So that's where I was like, I found firefighting and I found the school for it. And I was like, all right, this is something to do. It's something I could die doing. So at the time when I was 19, I was like, that sounds pretty cool. That's heroic. So um, yeah, I think I've always been like, if something has a risk attached to it, or if there's fear involved, I have to do it. Um, and yeah, like you said, it always works out. And now that I know that, I'm in my early to mid 30s, I kind of seek that. Like if I don't have something big on the radar, I get a little antsy.
Yep, I'm the same way, and that's why it's funny you mentioned that. Like, I seek fear because that was one of the things that I thought that I would miss about about powerlifting when I transitioned to bodybuilding, was that every day when I walked in the gym, there wouldn't be something where I would actually fear for my life. Like, I wouldn't walk out a squat and think I might die today.
Yeah.
Um, but you kind of manufacture that same level of friction towards daily movement, especially during prep.
Hmm.
The way I describe prep to people is that feeling when you walk out a heavy squat and your body tells you not to bend your knees. Bodybuilding is that, but for everything, all day,
Every decision.
every decision.
Yeah.
Um, so while you were firefighting, is that when you started bodybuilding, or did bodybuilding come into play after firefighting?
I started bodybuilding before I was a firefighter. Actually, I was just a paramedic, and then I did my first show. Same thing, kind of like along the lines of what we're talking about, where like I was living in a city where I didn't really know anyone. Went to a powerhouse there, which powerhouse is pretty big in the Midwest and out on the East
Yep.
Coast, or it was at the time. And there was a dude, owner of the, or he was like the manager of the gym, and he was jacked. And I had always known about bodybuilding. I had been a fan since I was 17, but I just, at this time, there's no social media. There's no, I would get a magazine here and there. The internet access was very limited where I grew up. I was pretty rural. So, I could watch YouTube videos, but they would like buffer. So it's like I'd watch a minute and then I'd watch it spin and then I'd watch another minute. So I remember watching like the early, Ronnie and Jay stuff. And I
Yep.
just, anything bodybuilding I was watching, I just was infatuated with it. Um, but it was 6 years from when I found bodybuilding to when I did my first show. But I walked up to that guy and I was like, hey man, like I don't know how it works, but I'd like to try to do one of these shows. And he just was like, come with me. And we walked into like the Pilates group fitness room. He's like, take off your clothes. And like, again, I'm 23. I know nothing about bodybuilding. And I'm like,
This
this
is
might,
totally normal.
I might have to fight this guy. I don't know what's about to happen. But he, I stripped down to my underwear. Yeah, I just stand there. He's like, arms out. And he just comes around, pinches love handles. He's like, you could bodybuild. He's like, um, when's the show? And I was like, I had looked up the MPC and stuff, so I knew enough. I was like, well, there's one, I guess, in 13 weeks. I was like, I don't know how long you think I need. He's like, we'll do that one. We'll start Monday. He's like, this, and this. And he's like, I'm going to coach you for, I think he coached me for like $300. He's like, bring cash. He's like, whatever I tell you, do it. And he's like, if you cheat on this diet, I won't be mad at you, but I will never look at you the same again. And I was that moment right there, I decided I was never going to cheat on bodybuilding, and I never
Yep.
have. That's how I was brought into it. It was just like, and I had never followed a diet in my life up until I'd eat clean. And, at the time I was a bro, so I knew protein was life.
Right.
I'd smash as much protein as I could, but that was my first time ever following a structured diet. It was like I started prep the next day. So I did a show. Had no business, I got waxed. I had no business being there. I should have started like I'll do the show in a year and 13 weeks, not 13 weeks away. But it was, I'm glad I did it that way. Cause like, it was just, throw
Trial
yourself in with the wolves. Yeah.
trial by fire, man.
Get stomped, and then you either get the bug and love prep in the process or you don't. And I loved it. I remember every bit of it, like being hungry, and it was a typical bro diet, tilapia and green beans for 9 weeks straight, cardio. I was watching Kevin Levrone documentaries. That, like, it was just, I missed so much about just that time period. But
Did you start
um,
sleeping on the floor?
I didn't get to that point. I
No.
stayed, I stayed on the bed. But um, and then I did that show. Didn't do another one for 2 years. By that time, I had got my first firefighting job, and I was actually in probation. My first, you start out as a probationary for your first year as a firefighter. Um, so I was in my probie year when I did my first prep, and it can be a lot to try to prep and be a to be a probie and to be a firefighter. Like, not all the guys are that accepting of your choice to do that. Like, firefighting is
Oh
very
yeah.
traditional. It's paramilitary. Um, because we eat, we're together 24 hours a day, 10 days a month. That's your second family. So, in prep, it was like, if it was my turn to cook, like, I'll cook, but I'm not eating, and I'm eating what I got to eat.
Right.
And some guys took offense to that. They weren't really cool with it. And it's just like, so I kind of shot myself in the foot in the fire service, because I was like so hell bent on being the best bodybuilder I could. Um, but yeah, I was all in on bodybuilding while I was a firefighter. And I'd actually say that was probably what, pretty much led to me leaving. Was like, I had a captain towards the end of with my second department, who was like, if you put half as much effort into being a good firefighter as you do bodybuilding, you'd be a great firefighter. And right then I knew, I was like, all right, well, this isn't going to be the career I stick with, because I don't want to do that. So,
Right.
and I ended up leaving a few months later.
When did personal training come into this? Because I know, like, that's your business. So
Yeah, yeah.
how did that career shift take place? I mean, I know you got involved with the gym, and you're a manager there. Was that when you started personal training?
So all my life, I've kind of been like, whatever friend group I had, I was like the guy when it came to like working out. Like, I was a gym bro. I was a me in high school all the way up. Like, I was fascinated by workout splits. I was fascinated by training. I'd watch YouTube, whatever I could, to like learn more about lifting weights. So I started writing programs for people just on, like, pen and paper. I'd be like,
Yep.
here, do this split. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of just had that going, and I never took money for years. Years. And I was like, I could be like, I could write it on a napkin or something. It was so informal, but it was just like, here's a split, here's some exercises, do this. Um, Personal training for money started a week after I quit the fire service. I I had 3 clients right away. Um, very low rates, obviously, and I had a
Yeah.
gym to train out of. Um, and then it picked up when I went to the other gym to help manage it. Um, and then coaching, the personal training clients I was taking on, I started to do nutrition
Yep.
for a very small add-on fee. And then I think I had 4 shows in, or I'd done 4 shows before I ever did a prep, and I did that prep for free. I worked with several people for free along the way, just to, like, earn my spot and get some knowledge. Um, in 2019, I did a mentorship with Jason Theopold.
Okay.
Um, the prep, I think it's a prep mentorship or coaching, one of the two. And that's where I really got some confidence to, like, all right, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because at the time, I was training people, and I probably had 12 to 15 clients that I was doing nutrition for. So I was like, I think I can make this happen. But it just kind of all was just like, it came and went. I didn't have any systems. I had no structure, man. I was just hustling. Once I quit the fire service, which was 2018. I think I was probably in a hustler, survive or die mentality until the fall of 2022.
Yeah, that's honestly for most people who get into this industry, it's feast or famine. Like you don't work, you don't eat. And people are very, very fickle with the way that they spend their money. Personal training and coaching, it's a luxury purchase. And unless they're people who truly value what you have to offer, you're going to have to really work hard to convince them and to also show that value. One thing that I think is really important to highlight about your journey, and that's why I love talking about someone's like, I don't like going into the like, well, how did you get here? And what's your story? Just for the purpose of laying it out for the audience. Part of what we do on the podcast is I want to showcase amazing people who do amazing things for amazing people. And it's important to highlight the details involved in your journey. We talked off air before we started about earning your keep. Bro, you earned your keep every step of the way. You coached for free, you sought out mentorship, you learned as much as you could before you even felt comfortable asking for money. Now, my advice to people is coaching people for free is a bit of a crapshoot because they're not really bought into the process. But if you pick the right people, it can be incredibly valuable and you learn a ton along the way. When you were going through that process of educating yourself and learning, you mentioned the mentorship with Jason Theobald. You alluded to Dusty Hanshaw being one of your mentors. How did you choose your mentors along the way?
Well, I've taken something from every coach I've ever been coached by, and this is back to like baseball when I was 12.
Right.
You know, I look at how that coach coached me at that time of my life, and he was just very, very anal about repetitions and the basics, almost to the point where it annoyed me and I got pissed. But looking back, I can see like he was making me master the basics because nothing else matters but the basics and the repetitions of the basics. High school coach, same thing. You know, I was the workout warrior, which is corny, but it kind of highlights how my mentality is now. I was the workout warrior like every year of high school baseball, all 4 years of varsity, like because not only did I work in the season like year round, dude, I was doing baseball. That was my life. That was my first love. So um, that type of meticulous dedication, and when I zero in on something, like I'm all in. And when I say like I will go in and I'll go when I got hooked on bodybuilding, I would like not sleep because I was just reading and watching videos, and like next thing you know the sun's rising and I'm like whatever, that's how it goes. But you know, I at the time when I picked Jason, I was just like, Jason put out a lot of good info. Jason had a lot of, you know, he had a very lucrative business at the time. I saw a lot of what he talked about, and I don't know if you remember Geared Up on
Yep.
Facebook.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you know, I respected him just for his presence in the industry. And again, you talk about, you know, earning your keep or earning your spot. Like back then too, like I observed everything online, whatever there was, but I didn't talk. And that's where I think the big issue now is like people want to come in and, you know, they tell you they want to coach, they want to do this, they want to do that, and they talk too much. And it's like your first several years, you should really just watch and listen
Yeah.
and observe. You can learn
Consume.
so much. And even still, I try to put myself in situations where I can listen more than I talk,
Yep.
around people that I can hear or I can listen and, you know, be more of a soldier than a general. But with Dusty, it was, you know, I was a fan first. It wasn't like it was Dusty was the freak of freaks, man. And
It's tough not to be a Dusty fan. Like if you consume any of the content that he's put out,
yeah. And I
he's
mean,
just a
back to the
fucking
iForce
monster.
days, like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like a OG when it comes to his
Same.
content. So um, I met him in Chicago at the Chicago Pro in 16 or 17. And my girlfriend at the time, I just remember looking over to the left and I had my first like fanboy. I was like, that's Dusty Hanshaw. And he just was walking towards us. And she actually said, hey, Dusty. And I wouldn't have talked to him, honestly. But we chatted, and then I sent him an email like a week later because I was in prep at the time, and I was like, hey, I was working with a coach, but I was like, do you think you could do some training program for me for this prep? And that's when I started DC. Um, and then towards the end of that prep, I was like, I think I think I want to work with this guy full time. And I told him that, and he was like, all right, here's what we do. We start, and I knew I wanted more than just a coach for the bodybuilding X's and O's. And I sent him a really long email on one of my nights where I couldn't sleep in prep. And I just highlighted all these different, I wanted, because I knew I was eventually going to leave the fire service. I knew I wanted to pursue coaching and I wanted to build a business in this industry. I knew I wanted to kind of be like him. I wanted to, link up with a company, and I wanted to be, I wanted to be Dusty in a way, but not exactly like him. And I remember his response to that email before he even knew, before he ever got a check in from me was, not only will we turn you into a freak, we will build your legacy along the way. And it's
Fuck,
like,
that's amazing.
to look back on that, it's like, we're doing that. We have done that. You know what I mean? Like I I got out to Arizona. I built a business. Everything I manifested has happened, and that's only because I just I wouldn't allow it not to happen. I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, 4 months after I moved to Arizona, COVID happened.
Right.
So I pretty much, any clients I had, I didn't have anymore.
Hmm.
I didn't do anything for a few months. And then it just became like, again, we talk about feast or famine, like survive or die, like the lights got to stay on.
Hmm.
So I was driving for Lyft, donating plasma, moving furniture, looking through Facebook Marketplace, because where I live, people will post jobs like, hey, I need these mirrors driven across town, must be able to lift 25 pounds, pay $250. So it's like, oh, sweet, I need $250. So I just look at Facebook Marketplace to find stuff to do. And then when gyms were allowed to open back up, I started training people at Muscle Factory. And then this is where I believe in like habits and rituals of like, man, if you got a dream, you just got to ride out the low spots.
Yep.
Because whatever happened, it was just like a surge of the universe threw me a bone. Like I just got like a huge wave of clients and inquiries came in, and it was like right at a time where I needed it. And then same thing in 2022, it was just like boom, I like tripled my business. I don't think there was one specific thing, but it was just like client results. I showed that like I was, putting out that I was coaching and I hadn't, gone radio silent and moved back to Michigan and fallen off. You know what I mean? I was still doing it. And that was like where I finally was able to like take a breath. And, because all through this, I wasn't, it got to the point where at one point I remember like, do I pay my car payment or do I pay my phone bill? Well, my phone will shut off if I don't pay it in, 3 months. My car or whatever, it's going to hurt my credit, but I need my phone to generate income for this thing I'm trying to do. And it was just
Right.
like I made that decision without thinking twice. I know a lot of people that would have been like, "Man, forget the coaching thing. I got to go get a job, or I got to go back to the fire service." And it's like I couldn't do it. I couldn't. It was more of a pride thing. I couldn't let anybody that knew I quit the fire service and moved to Arizona have that satisfaction of knowing I failed.
I have two questions. Well, one statement and then a question. This is like the perfect highlight for young coaches listening, that the harder you work, the luckier you get. I firmly,
That's
firmly
good.
believe that. If you put out positivity to the world and you continue to lead with value, you continue to lead with your passion, it is really hard to not be successful. Like truly, if you're telling me, hey, I'm staying up late at night trying to educate myself as much as possible, I'm coaching for free, I'm trying to learn as much as I can, I'm seeking out coaches and mentors, I'm trying to be the best version of myself so that I can serve others, you will be successful. It might take a little bit more time, especially if you don't have the systems in place or you don't have a framework for it. but you will be successful. You just have to ride it out. That's the first statement. The question, now that you look at your business as it is now, understanding, of course, that we're always trying to grow, we're always trying to move beyond where we are. Do you ever stop and feel proud of your ability to endure?
I want to put a segue on that statement you made first
Sure.
because actually want to get your take too on. I think success is very perceptive. So for me, success it it didn't and it still doesn't come in the form of like materialism. For
Mhm.
me, success in that instance was being able to pay all my bills and put them on auto withdrawal and not have to like play which bill am I going to pay every month. That was like, damn, I made it. That was like the most grateful feeling I could have at that time, was to like, bills are out of sight, out of mind. I know there's enough money in my account, and now I don't have to like live with that perpetual fear of overdrafting or not being able to do something or whatever. So, you know, you should be getting into coaching for the right reasons. I never got into coaching to make a lot of money or to, there's a pool right over there. I've never sat by it and answered updates. Like, I didn't get into coaching to be lazy. I got into it because I was passionate. I liked the concept of it, and I didn't want to be told what to do anymore by anyone. I wanted to set my own schedule, and truthfully, I wanted to be a full-time bodybuilder. I wanted to eat my meals from home. I wanted to,
Yep.
do things that way. So, but to your question, um, I have an interest. I don't know if it's interesting. It might actually be a dark take, but I don't allow myself to feel proud of myself. For me, and I don't tell people this to do it my way or clients, I always tell clients like, you should be proud, but I don't allow myself to do that because I look at it as a form of complacency.
Hmm.
And because I believe in myself and I believe that whatever I say could happen, if I'm proud of it, it almost takes away from that belief. So I just check the box and I move on. And I think I'm saving the pride for like down the line. I might look back and be like, damn, I really did a lot of cool stuff. But I don't know. Right now, to me, I've deemed it a weakness. And that might be a weakness in itself, but that's where I'm at with it.
So I'm going to caveat this by saying I've been to a lot of therapy. Um, I used to be very similar, and in fact, there's a lot of elements of my personality that still carry that level of perpetual growth and never being satisfied. But one of the things that is always on the top of my mind is, if I was to die tomorrow, never having felt proud of how hard I worked, I think I would be doing a disservice to my effort. My definition for success has also changed a lot over time.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was I want to have my dream job, which is being a head college strength coach. I had my dream job when I was 26, and I left it in 8 months because it was awful. And then I was working full time for an insurance company doing disability rehab. So still working in my field, still coordinating treatment plans, using my expertise. And I did that for 6 years because my boss just let me do it my way. But my goal for then was, success was when I can quit this full time job and coach full time. That would be success for me. Then it was, okay, well, I want to have a thriving business. We did that. Now, definition of success is, I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, where I want, with who I want. And if I look at the business that we've built, aside from me deciding one day that I want to go to Ibiza, like, I can pretty much do that. So success is there. Then I started thinking about happiness. Like, am I truly happy? I'm truly happy when I have a goal that I'm working towards. And what I've come to realize is that my feeling of pride, even if it's 5 minutes, I still want to feel it. Because the beauty of reaching the top of a mountain is you can see the other mountain peaks from that top of the mountain. So taking that moment of pride is simply just appreciating that you climbed to the top of that next mountain, and you have a view of the other ones that you want to pick. So that's kind of the way that I look at pride. Taking the example of like the show that I did a month and a half ago or a month ago. I felt proud because a year prior to that show, I was in a wheelchair, and I decided that I was going to step on stage and put a cap on that. And I did everything that I needed to do from the moment I got home from the hospital to the moment I stepped on stage, checked every box, and there was a profound feeling of pride. But the next day when I woke up, I already had the next goal. I already knew what I was going to do, and I put it behind me and I moved on. So I think I agree with you that you never want to be complacent and you always want to be pushing for growth. But if we look at our day to day as pushing a rock up a hill, and every day that rock rolls down to the bottom, as long as you have a reason to push that rock up a hill, you should be happy and you should be able to feel proud whenever you actually get it to the top. Um, I love the concept of like actually understanding your own psychology, which I think bodybuilding provides a really interesting lens to look at it through, because bodybuilding is a 24/7 endeavor. So you mentioned like I got into coaching because I just want to be a full-time bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself choosing between your business and your own pursuits, or are you, or have you found a way to balance both?
I'm sure I have had to choose in one way or another over the years. As it stands right now, I am very much on the mindset and the path of extreme balance, which in my viewpoint is harmony. The discipline that's needed for me to be the best bodybuilder I can be is exactly how I have to be as a coach. And
Absolutely.
I noticed in 2000, I competed in 2023, ended in July. 2024, I kind of hit a wall. I don't want to say, I'm not going to say it was anything to do with mental health. I I got to a point where I accomplished everything that I moved to Arizona to do. I started a coaching business. I was a full-time bodybuilder. I built a coaching website. All this stuff that I wrote out when I first moved here, like website, YouTube channel, coaching business, be able to support myself without any other, jobs or working for anyone. Like all of it was checked off. And
Yep.
um, I remember talking to Dusty. I was like, I miss being in the fire. Like I don't have a battle. Um, and I was to the point where I was like going to shotgun move to Utah last year just to give myself that feeling again. Or, cause I did spend time back in Michigan. Like there was periods where I was living on an air mattress and living in the back of the gym that I worked in. And I missed that feeling of, because once you get so far towards the bottom, the only way is up, because it's like there's nowhere else to go. You're already, you're 28 years old living in a gym and you don't have any real income coming in. You're one step away from living under a bridge.
Right.
And when you get out of that, it's, at least for me, it was like, man, I'm living in North Scottsdale. I don't have any worries. Um, and he was just like, you got to raise the bar. You need a new goal. You need
Yep.
goals. So fast forward to 2025, started prep, and that it wasn't like I need to be in prep to be a good coach. It realigned me with like I need to be that person year round. I can't I can't get I can't let my clients um, dictate the shots. I gotta, not that I need to be a hard ass, but I gotta be a more of a leader and less of like a side to side, like, well, if you want to do this, or if you want to get this supplement, or, it's more direct. Like, you need to hire this posing coach, or you need to do, like, if you want to excel, this is what you have to do. So this past prep made me a better leader, and it made me really own the fact that I am a leader and I need to exhibit that year round. So, like, to answer your question, it's the same. It's extreme balance, and that's how, I forget who. I think Dan Garner. I heard that from him on a different podcast where he talks about being his personal fitness, his career, and his being a dad and a husband. There's no balance. It's extreme in all aspects and that's what allows harmony.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. I think people talk about balance, but I think balance, and they'll say, oh, balance is bullshit. I'm like, no, it's not. Balance can exist, but it exists on the macro level. It doesn't exist in the micro level. You know, you have periods of the year where you're focused exclusively on your stuff. There's periods of the year where you're exclusively focused on business. And that doesn't mean the other stuff falls off, but there has to be some level of like pendulum shift. But at the same time, we can't look at our life in silos. Like I know for a fact when I'm training my ass off towards a goal, when my time is crunched, when I'm trying to be the best husband I can, and when I'm trying to be the best coach I can, all of it feeds together.
Mm-hmm.
That ecosystem of your life feeds into itself, and you're more fulfilled, you're more present, you're more engaged, and people feed off of that energy. And one of the reasons like I was excited about having you on the podcast is like you're a product of your product. Like you are the epitome of this is what I sell. If you want to be the best version of yourself, train like a fucking savage and check all the boxes, I will help you do that because I do that. And I think that's an element that a lot of coaches miss. They just don't walk the walk. How do you like, do you see that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, one of my things that I like to live by, and I tell people on sales calls, or coaching consults, is I lead from the front. I'm never going to ask you to do something I'm not doing or haven't done.
Yep.
You know, everything. If I'm telling you that you need to go to bed at a certain time and get up at a certain time, and really set your life around achieving this goal, it's because I'm doing the same thing.
Mhm.
So that, that's I never really try to get into highlighting that online, because I think you and I are similar of like, you can either project negativity or you
Yep.
can project positivity. And I'm not what I would consider like Mr. Optimistic. The world is full of sunshine and rainbows, but I'm also not, the world is cloudy and storms and life's a bitch and then you die. I'm a rational optimist. I choose to find the good and extract the good in situations. And, stoicism has taught me too that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You either go through it, and you get to choose how you react, and you get to choose what your mindset is. So I try to just look at every situation like that, and I try to be that voice, for my following and anybody that wants to pay attention to what I have to say. But yeah, it does bother me. Like I see people every day offering coaching or saying, message me for a meal plan or whatever. And it's like, on what grounds? Because you worked with one coach and were able to, hold it together for 12 weeks and make one transformation. Now you're going to take on people.
Yeah.
And that it is what it is. It's always going to happen.
Yeah. You're always going to have that type of person who sees an opportunity to generate income and wants to capitalize on it. But the cream always rises to the top. And I'm really glad you mentioned stoicism because it's a framework that I base a lot of my life views around. Even the concept of positivity in the way that we present ourselves and the information. I can't control what other people are going to say and do. I can only control what I say and do. And as long as what I say and do is in line with my core values and everyone knows what my core values are, I'm going to be in a good place. I also think there's an element of acceptance that has to come with facing hardships. I think a lot of people, whether it's, hardships when it comes to generating an income or building a business, or hardships when it comes to the challenges that life presents us, I think most of your stress comes from fighting life. Life happens at the speed of life, and you can't control what it is. All you can control is how quickly you can accept your circumstance and choose how you move through it. And at every level, the reason I highlighted bodybuilding initially, obviously you're a bodybuilder, I've competed in bodybuilding. It presents a phenomenal framework for you have to check these boxes. If these boxes do not get checked, do not pass go, do not collect $200. So it doesn't fucking matter what's going on in the rest of your life. You have to find a way. And I think that's a beautiful imagery for how to be successful in literally anything. And I think it is an important thing to highlight, because if we as coaches do a great job of teaching people those skills and they're able to translate those into the rest of their lives, who knows what they can achieve.
One of
Yeah.
my favorite quotes by Einstein is, "There's a way, find it."
I
And
love that.
it's brilliant because it's like, no matter whatever your day throws at you, there's a way to get your meals in. Whatever your day throws at you, you can get your water in, you can get your steps in. There's so many boxes that are, they might take some effort some days over others, but they don't require talent. They don't,
Yeah.
genetics doesn't dictate checking 90% of the boxes that you have to do in both bodybuilding and life. Um, and that's the stuff I really try to, I'm always talking about mastering the foundational basics, to all clients, whether they're
Yeah.
bodybuilding, lifestyle. I mean, anybody. I'm like, what's the most basic thing we need to focus on to get better? Let's focus on that.
Now, one thing that I did want to talk about, maybe it's a little bit more X's and O's rather than mindset stuff. When I look at, who your mentors were, I look at Dusty Hanshaw. For those listeners who aren't familiar with Dusty, like, if you wanted hardcore training content, he was the guy. And you were able to train with him for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're working with Danny Lamartina as your coach for training. I've worked with Danny. I know her approach. I've had her on the podcast before. The viewers, if they listen to that episode, I'll link it in the show notes. But there's a level of intelligent violence that comes along with Danny's programming, whereas I feel like Dusty's programming is like hitting everything with a sledgehammer.
Yeah.
How do you balance both ends of that pendulum?
It's a daily, ongoing experiment.
Yeah.
But it's cool because I just did North Americans and Dusty was there and we talked a lot about training, and he was like, I know what you're doing now and it's good. You've figured out a way to keep getting better. And he's like, I was looking at some old videos and pictures, and he's like, now you need to marry what you used to do with me and what you're doing now, and like find, they need to have a baby,
Yep.
and that's where we're at. And I just talked to Danny about that a week ago, actually. So yeah, Dusty is like the juggernaut. You just run through walls, and when when you think you're done, you're going to do five more. Um, that was, I'll always look back on those times with admiration and fondness, just because, for part of it too, it was COVID. I mean, we were training in a gym with paper on the windows. It was just us because we had keys.
Right.
And it was just like, man, the world is going nuts right now. But I'm in here training legs with Dusty Hanshaw on a Monday afternoon, and like, I'm good. I don't, I can't pay all my bill. Like, I was still in that survival mode, but there was a lot of times during that where I was just like, it's what I would think, like, if got what guys in the old days, if they were in war together, like, you just, when you're in the thick of it with your boys, it's just something about that camaraderie and that brotherhood that um it's just, there's just a lot of gratitude for that time period. But yeah, it led to a lot of, you know because I'm not a quitter, and I would never let Dusty see me fail or say I couldn't do something. So it did lead to a lot of orthopedic issues as far as hips, ankles, knees.
Yep.
I had to get Prolo and PRP in one of my knees multiple rounds. So I've had to kind of recreate a lot of stuff even before Danny, build
Mhm.
back up from the bottom, learn how to do a lot of things over again. And then even with her, it's like she's shown me, like, hey, your mobility is pretty poor. So we got to work from the ground up. And it's like, I love the challenge. Um, I think with her, I've learned a lot. I've taken a lot of aggression out of my training. It's a lot more controlled. Um, it's harnessed, and everything is like, how can I put more tension on the working muscle without flaring up my CNS? Because and that it's almost like stoicism comes into play. Is like, I think about that Fight Club scene where he gives Edward Norton the chemical burn on his hand, and
Yep.
he tries to rip his hand away, and he's like, "This is your pain, not don't go somewhere else. Like, this is it right here." And that's what I'm trying to do with Danny's, programming and guidance. Is like, if the quads feel like they're gonna pop, keep going, but just close your eyes and zero in on it more and more and more. And from the outside looking in, it looks like I've like completely changed camps. I'm reps in reserve, like all this shit. And it's like, it's not it at all, but I'm just focused more on results than I am what it looks like to others. It's almost allowed me to like remove my ego too, which is a huge, I never thought I'd be able to do that in a contest prep, but it was just a total ego removal. And everything she told me to do, I trusted and I tried it, and it just, nothing really backfired. I got better throughout the prep, and I never hit a wall.
Has working with How have the different coaches that you've worked with influenced how you yourself coach your clients?
So it's just giving me more tools in the toolbox. Like,
I love
every
that. Yep.
every client is different. You know, somebody that's 21 that comes to me that tells me they want to get huge, they probably need some of what Dusty gave me. So it's
Yeah.
like,
You're
I got to
getting a
be that person for them.
you're getting a
I got to
Costco membership and a bottle of test.
exactly. Somebody that's 45, done a few shows, still wants to improve, but they've got X, Y, and Z that's injured and this life situation or whatever. Like, maybe they need a bit more of what I've learned from Danny.
Right.
Um, so it's just like, I look at every coach I've had as some form of an internship, and you extract things,
Yes.
and that's my big argument too with the camp of people that want to self coach and figure things out. Well, I think that's noble and courageous. And like, I think at a certain point, everybody's probably learned enough to where they could try to self coach.
Yeah.
I just love being a client because it makes me such a better coach in all ways.
I have always said that. I've self-coached, and funny enough, I self-coached to my biggest totals ever in powerlifting. But at every time I've hired a coach, I've leveled up my coaching. I've leveled up my toolbox, and I've been able to look at things in a way that's just completely different. And one of the things that I appreciate about the content that you put out, that I don't know if you do it consciously, but maybe you do. Please let me know if it is conscious. I would much rather teach someone how to ask better questions than I would to give them answers. And I don't think that you get that when you're self coaching because you don't have another lens to look through,
Right.
So like that's why I admire coaches who buy into that and say, hey, listen, I'm going to treat this coaching relationship as an internship. I'm going to learn as much as I can through this process. And I'm going to learn how to marry it with the philosophies that I already have because what you did got you to where you are. And I mean, you're a nationally qualified competitor. You're not small. So something was working. It just worked until it didn't. So for you, it was orthopedic issues that had you reach out to Danny. Now, as you're working with Danny, you're seeing, okay, well, maybe there's elements that I can bring in from my old philosophies into this as well. Do you see yourself as a coach kind of changing the type of client that you're looking to coach as you change coaches, or will you just kind of frame your coaching to the person?
I mean, I think yeah, my voice and my I think my style is it's acquired. I'm not for everyone for sure. I mean, I'm not for most. I would say I can work, I can adapt, but I'm also at a point within my business and where I want to scale it to that I don't want to adapt to a certain, past a certain point.
I'm glad you said
Like,
that.
like if someone, let's say someone who's coming off like a gastric bypass surgery and is still too, you know, 30, 40, 50% obese and has no eat, like that person needs something different than what I'm going to give because I'm very, direct, and I probably don't have the level of empathy that that person would need. And for me to try to adapt to be who that person needs, it takes away from my own cup and it takes away from the other clients I have's cup. So it's like I don't need to be for everyone. I need to be for the, whether you want to call it a niche or the target audience or whoever. Like I want to work with people who want to. I love Jocko's quote about discipline is freedom because it is. There's nothing more liberating than being disciplined in your life with your fitness, with your career, and with your personal relationships. If you
Completely
are
agree.
disciplined in those three things, you are fulfilled, you are punched in the face by gratitude daily, and you have a purpose. And that's the type, those people I want to work with. I want to change lives more than I want to, get somebody abs or get them jacked. That's part of it. But it's also because I'm so into stoicism and energy and like the bigger picture, it's more than that. I want to transform identities.
I'm glad you mentioned the identity shift because I completely agree with you on the discipline front, and I completely agree with you on the side of like understanding who you coach is probably less important than understanding who you don't. And that takes a level of introspection that I think maybe is driven by a scarcity mindset of I need to bring every client in so that I can have a roster and make money. But
Yeah.
what you realize very quickly is that those clients that don't fit the avatar that you serve best end up taking away from your ability to serve the ones that you do. And then at that point, your business kind of cannibalizes itself because those clients who would otherwise refer you other people aren't getting a good enough service to mandate that referral. And then the clients that, you came on and don't really appeal to you end up just unhappy. And again, they're not going to refer you people either. So, and the other piece is like transforming lives. You mentioned it earlier. You said when you're going through your own journey, you're like, I need to raise the bar for myself and seek that next level of growth. That's literally the mission statement of our business is raising the bar because that's what we want to do. We want to change lives. Now, the vehicle that you've chosen is bodybuilding because that's the vehicle that you yourself are driving. Do you ever see yourself transitioning away from bodybuilding? Or is this like, I'm a bodybuilder through and through? This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
I'll always be a bodybuilder. I mean, I don't think you ever let that go. The lifestyle component of it.
It's so true.
Um, I don't think, I have no intention of competing into like my 40s. I'm not going to be the masters guy, going for decades. No disrespect to those people. I think it's awesome. And I love to watch and I coach masters people. But that's, I have other goals in life and, um, life is meant to be lived. Um, and how do I word this? If all I did for my entire time here was be a hardcore disciplined bodybuilder, I think I would be let down with my life choice. I want to, I almost want to, I don't want to go about it the same way Dorian did, but I want to be so extreme and so disciplined and know that I checked every box for years and years and years that when it comes time to let go of the competitor in me and not, to know one day to know when I get off stage, that's the last time I'm going to have a spray tan. That's the last time I'm going to be this peeled, all that I'm good. Like I'll be ready to shift from this identity into another, but it doesn't mean I got to let bodybuilding go completely, if that makes sense. Like I do want to travel, I want to experience some different things. I want to take up some hobbies and some other endeavors, whether it be competitive or not. Like I do have other things in life I want to seek out. I'll always be in the industry. I'll always, I'm going to
Yeah.
coach, I'm going to grow, I'm going to go to shows, I'm going to support. I got friends that compete, whatever. But, there's a ceiling for me competitively. I know I'm the least delusional bodybuilder there is. There's no pro wins in my future. There's no Olympia. And that's cool. I knew that. I knew that 8 years ago. I saw that
Right.
on the wall, but it's bodybuilding has given me a life that I never could have dreamed of as like a 12 or 13-year-old kid. So I love it. I'll never be mad at it. It's given me everything. And it's truly, I would argue that it's the bodybuilding lifestyle. You remove the competing, you remove getting unnecessarily heavy in the off seasons and insanely lean for the competitive factor. If you remove the drug use, the bodybuilding lifestyle of training, eating clean foods, and disciplining yourself with the things you need to do as far as sleep, hydration, and all that, it's a pretty damn good lifestyle that I think a lot of Americans could probably benefit from.
It's so I'm literally sitting here nodding the whole time because, for me, I started training because I wanted to see how strong I could get. And I
How
was
old were
like,
you when you started training?
I was 17.
Yeah.
So I started a little bit later. In Canada, training when I was younger wasn't really a thing for sports. And I was a basketball player. So like, I'm not lifting weights to play basketball. But I realized that I was under muscled and I didn't have enough conditioning to play at the college level where I wanted to play. Um, so I ended up starting to lift, starting to run, starting to condition myself. That's when I fell in love with the process. I ended up losing like 60 pounds in 2 months. And I walked on to our college team. Then I started playing football, got into sports performance. And then that's when I got into the collegiate strength world. But for me, I was always more enamored with the process of training. And it's funny because you mentioned, you identify as a bodybuilder now, but you'll take on new identities. And what I've come to realize now that I'm not going to compete ever again in bodybuilding. I did 2 shows. I'm not a bodybuilder. If you classify competitive bodybuilding, it was never part of my identity. But even when I was powerlifting, I was prepping my meals, I was counting my macros, I was doing all the same shit I was doing. The output was a little bit different. I'm also never stepping on a powerlifting platform again because I got into training to figure out how strong I could get. Man, I fucking found it. I exploded my kneecaps, so I found it. And as I'm going through the rehab process in my mind, I'm like, I found how strong I could get. Cool. What's the next mountaintop? And it was, okay, well, I'll go do another bodybuilding show because my first show sucked and I'm going to do better than I did before. I did that. Climb the mountaintop. What's the next mountaintop? And now it's, training to be as fit as I can possibly be, competing in tactical games, that sort of thing. And I'm like, cool. Well, that's the next mountaintop physically. I remember walking into the grocery store after I did the show and I was like, I can eat whatever I want. And I literally bought the same shit I bought during prep.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I guess this is how I eat now. Because my identity is somebody who optimizes everything he does. And
Yeah.
if I'm going to be training 2 or 3 times a day every day, I'm going to have to fuel for it. And I might as well get the most out of my training. So I'm going to get the most out of my fueling. And we're going to optimize. And optimize looks like a bodybuilding lifestyle. My wife and I went to go test drive cars this weekend. I brought 2 meals with me. So like
Yeah.
the lifestyle doesn't change, the identity doesn't change, the medium changes, but you stay the same person. And I think if more people paid more attention to those like little details of looking inward and really looking at like what you value, I think health would be number one. I totally agree with you that the bodybuilding lifestyle, when you take out the extremes, it's how most people should be living.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I love that take on it. Um, so we're looking at, where your business is now, where you want to go to. I love talking about like future plans. Like what does style, strength, and performance look like as we move into 2026, as we move into 2027? What do you want to build?
I mean, right now it's just blocks on top of each other, and I want to keep building higher. So continuing to scale. In 2026, I would like to have a coach underneath me.
Okay.
So I think not long term, but probably as we go into 2026 and definitely into 2027, my view of myself will be more of like a coachpreneur.
Yep.
So I'm the head coach, but also learning to take on CEO roles. Because up until this point, with the exception of here and there, I've had some help, and I tried bringing on a coach at one time, like 2 years ago, and I found some flaws in myself through that. Like I'm a good leader for others when it comes to clients, but leadership of someone working under you or working for your brand is a whole different ballgame. So learning to delegate, learning to trust, learning to be a resource for people to reach out to if they have questions. Like you mentioned, looking at things through the lens of a client, looking at things through the lens of someone working for you or working under you is just something that I totally overestimated, and I'll probably need to do some due diligence on, as far as like, I know there's CEOs who've wrote books, and there's probably a ton of stuff I can deep dive to improve my skill set there. But
I've got some pretty
being
good book recommendations for you.
yeah, being more of like a CEO, because one thing that Lance, the owner of Muscle Factory, brought to my attention at one point was like, if I get smashed at a four-way intersection and I'm in the hospital for a month, does my business have an operating system that can function while I'm not around? And it's like, no, sir, it doesn't. So that's in the back of my mind now a lot more than it was because in the beginning it's just like, hey, I got to pay these bills.
Yep.
I
I'm going to
gotta,
trade
I
time
gotta,
for money.
and now it's like, all right, you make enough money, you invest, you do all that stuff. Now it's time to like build a sustainable business that's functional if you're not in it every second of every day.
One of the things that your path is very similar to mine. When I started my business, it was just me coaching online. Over the last 3 years, we've added 5 coaches. We're about to add another one. Coaches Corner University was just me as a mentor and an educator, and then I'm bringing on 3 other mentors this coming year. Oop, let the cat out of the bag there on that one. But becoming the CEO of your business, there's a transition that takes place where you go from being a guy who coaches people to a guy who owns a coaching business. So you mentioned, like, what if I got, smashed at a four-way intersection and I was in the hospital? Would my business fall apart? I pretty much did that, and our business didn't fall apart, and we kept on going. And that was one of the things I was like, okay, well, my wife, we're going to be starting a family. So if I lose half her income or even all of her income, is our personal finances going to fall apart? That is going to fall solely on the ability of the business to sustain itself.
Right.
Right. So, and I think not enough people ask themselves these questions and allow the answers to those questions to drive the growth or in the direction that they want to go. They're just kind of living in the moment, working in the business. And if you truly want to be an entrepreneur and you want to create a sustainable business, you have to spend as much time working on the business as you do in the business. And you can't do that when you're constantly trading time for money. So how do you pull yourself back? How do you, create that time and space to create the systems, create the processes, create the infrastructure to allow that scalability to take place? It takes time. It takes a lot of education, and you know, having good people in your corner. As you know, environment is everything, and that starts
Hmm.
with the people you surround yourself with. So, you're going to be just fine. I can tell you that. Um, if there was a message that you would have on the side of on a billboard on the side of the highway for everyone to read, doesn't have to be related to fitness, what would it be?
It would be simple, actually. It would be dream big.
The simple ones always hit me the hardest because I know there's a lot that goes into those two words.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about it on the podcast, but I mean, you're not gonna rise. What's the quote? You don't you don't rise to the level of your you rise to the level of your expectations. I think is something along those lines. But if you're afraid to dream, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And I
Well, I think,
think, go ahead, go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah.
I think because within that, I can talk about like self belief.
Mhm.
I didn't move to Arizona with belief that everything that's happened would happen. I just believed that it could happen as long as I put in the work. And that's
Yeah.
one thing, like, I don't praise myself at all. I don't really compliment myself. I will on that front of like, I can work.
Yep.
I learned to work at a young age. I grew up on a lot of land. I had to do a lot of chores. I hated doing all that shit, but I can look back on it with gratitude. And I understand why my parents made me put in, hours and hours of yard work and all this other stuff growing up. It's like when you learn how to work, like actually work, all the stuff that we have to do now, and it's like, oh, I got to get on, I got to make sure I message clients, and I got to post this video, and I got to go to the gym. It's like that stuff's easy.
Yep.
Um, so I didn't believe any of it would happen. I believed it could happen. And I think that's a big thing to know about self-belief is like, even now, it's like, I think now I probably believe things will happen more than I did 6 years ago when I moved here because I've kind of proven it and I've got something to go off of now.
Yep.
But in the beginning, it was just like, you know, moving here was like jumping off a cliff, and my work ethic's the parachute that's going to keep me from hitting rock bottom.
Harder you work, the luckier you get, brother.
Yeah, and that's true. That was a really good one too, because you don't even look at it as luck though. You just kind of look at it as like alignment.
Alignment is one of the things that drives a lot of the decisions that I make. But communicating alignment to somebody who has no ability to introspect is really challenging. Like I can tell in speaking with you that you spend a lot of time thinking about yourself. You spend a lot of time thinking about, all right, this is what I'm planning to do. Why am I motivated to do it? Why did I have the outcome that I had? How did that make me feel? All of these things lead to a greater understanding of self. And until you have a deep understanding of who you are as a person, it's going to be really hard to make the right decisions because you ultimately don't know your starting point, right? You don't know that uh, you put the destination in the GPS, but the GPS only works when you have a starting point. And to create alignment between starting point and end point, that's really really tough to do. But that's what makes people successful in the long term.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, a lot of what I do in my mentorship is like helping people figure out who they are. One of my favorite questions, and you can steal this, is who are you? But you can't use your job, your hobbies, your family, or your faith in your description. That's a tough question. That's a really tough question. But what I've come to realize is that those people who are successful over a long period of time can answer that question very easily.
What was it? Your family, your faith, your job?
Your job, your hobbies, and your family. Your family, your faith, your job, your hobbies.
Trying to think of what my answer would be. I think for me, it would be I'm a dreamer who believes there's more to be had than what I'm doing right now.
That's great. That will drive all of your decisions moving forward, and you'd be absolutely blown away by the results of what happens.
Yeah, that's good
Um,
though.
all right, two questions because I have to ask all the meatheads that are on the show. What is the craziest thing you've ever seen in the weight room?
Man, I've seen some cool powerlifting stuff in Detroit.
Detroit had some crazy powerlifters back in the day.
Just some of the like, I just remember being around some of the bigger guys that were like, they'd be working up to like a 700 to 800 pound squat, and in between, I just remember this one dude. He was eating sushi from Kroger with his hands, like in between his warm up sets, and it's just like, man, these guys are a different animal. Um, man, it's hard to pick one thing, but no, I got one. It was 2019, watching Dusty row, bent over barbell row. I think it was 525 for 8. And we had metal plates, so they were like jingling on the way
Oh
up and
yeah.
down, and it was just the that I'll never forget that moment because it was just like I'm just standing there with like my hand on my hip, watching, and he's just flawless too. Like,
Oh yeah.
the four. It's not like they were like choppy. Like it was 8 straight consistent tempo. And just watching him back it out from the half rack is like, that's 525 pounds. The bar's bending.
Yep.
Um, just an animal, like joints made of titanium.
One of the things that one of the memories that I have of Dusty was I was watching a video of him training, and he did barbell skull crushers with 225.
Oh yeah, I've seen that numerous times.
And all I'm thinking is like, my elbows would literally explode if I tried to do that.
It's funny. I would say the majority of his training partners, all of us, anytime he did that movement, we just went and did something else because it's like, I'm not doing barbell skull crush. I'll do easy bar,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
and I'm certainly not getting up to 225.
Um, last question I have for you. If there's one person that you would like to see me interview on the podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is that you have to help me get them on.
One person. It's tough when you single them out because I'm thinking of the second part of like, do I have any pull with the people I want you to get on? Let
I
me
haven't
see.
had Dusty, so that's an easy answer.
I got that one for you. Well, we'll say that one's grandfathered. I want to give you,
Okay.
because I can get you that.
Give me a twofer.
Yeah. Um, I'm assuming they have to be a coach, right? Or be in the coaching space.
Sure.
Yeah. Um, there's one I want to put out, like, because I got several I could get for you, or I could have pull with that would easily say yes. But so those are I'm gonna obviously offer you all those. But this one I think would be really interesting because you're a really good you do your homework as far as who you're having on. And I just made this connection. He's also from Canada. I mentioned him earlier, Dan Garner.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I don't I, I don't have much reach, but I'll try.
All right. All right. Tommy, man, this was a great conversation. I would definitely love to do this again if you're up for it in the future.
Oh, I'm up for it, and we'll definitely do a part two. But the
100%.
roles will be reversed. So
Love it.
little
Can't wait.
footsteps in the wind for the listeners.
Where can everyone find you?
Instagram, T-Styles2, or my coaching website if you're interested in inquiring, stylestrength.com. And then my YouTube, Tommy Stiles. That's the three main ones. So
I love
I
it.
appreciate you having me on, man. I was stoked for this one. The minute, you and I started talking at Muscle Factory, I was like, this dude and I are like brothers from another mother. He likes
Oh, yeah.
discipline. He likes hard training. Like, it's talking my language. So I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.